Okay, if you're just coming through the door, run to your seat because we will get started momentarily. Okay, what a fantastic second day of this conference, and it's exciting to see so many people at this late time of the day. I hope you all had some coffee. We hope to end this day with an engaging discussion on the frontier of digital public infrastructure. So what digital public infrastructure has done, it has changed the way how we think about how digital transformation happens. But the frontier is always moving, and that is why we want to wrap up this day by discussing what the future frontier of digital public infrastructure will be. And we're going to address this question from two perspectives. First of all, we will look at it from a global perspective, a technological perspective, and see how emerging technologies like artificial intelligence change the needs for systems, for DPI systems that we're building. And the second perspective that we will integrate is that we'll hear from multiple people from across sectors how this frontier affects their strategies, how they are building future-proof systems. And yeah, without further ado, I'm introducing Amandeep Gill once more to hold the keynote and to set the scene for the session.
Thank you very much, Moritz. Thank you for moving us away from the stage down here. It's been, yes, thank you. Hello. Thank you. It's been 2 exciting days, and I guess you might be a little tired now, so we will quickly get you into some thinking about the future. I want to start by noting the nature of DPIs. It is the way some smart thinkers have incorporated cutting-edge technologies, digital technologies, into society-level infrastructures and problem solving. Now, like all technologies or technology-based approaches, the frontier is always evolving. So as those technologies shift, we need to shift our thinking, our approaches for using those technologies as well. Now, in terms of this anticipatory challenge, where are we headed in terms of technology and its applications with regard to digital public infrastructure? We are quite engaged with the help of many other partners thinking about that future. And today I just want to share with you a couple of thoughts on what could lie ahead on the DPI frontier. I often tell my team that the short term and the long term start at the same time. You know, we can't wait for the long term to kick in at another stage. So even as we address the problems of the past, the leapfrogging aspect of the DPIs, or the challenges of today in terms of stimulating the digital economy more inclusively by leveraging DPIs, we need to keep thinking about the frontier. And so what are those 2 areas that I like us to think about? And we have a distinguished high-level panel, and I'm sure they will bring more thoughts to this conversation. So my 2 thoughts that I leave with you relate, one, to the artificial intelligence aspect, which is on top of minds for a lot of us. Now, we don't want to be in a situation in which we are thinking about digital public infrastructure today, and then 5 years later, we start thinking about an infrastructure for AI. So how can we align these 2 short-term and long-term considerations, and also be more anticipatory? Because the exact infrastructure requirements of AI are still out there. And there is, in a way, a kind of tension creative or otherwise, between kind of concentrated um, um, approaches to infrastructure. Think of the discussion around AI factories, like the CEO of NVIDIA likes to talk about AI factories, highly concentrated compute infrastructure that delivers AI solutions, or an alternative vision whereby there's a more distributed approach to using digital infrastructure for AI development. So that tension is out there. We don't know where the exact outcome would be, but it is important to think about digital public infrastructure from that perspective as well. And AI, in a short-term sense, it could also be a tool for accelerating inclusion in the DPI space by, for example, facilitating last-mile access in languages that are context-specific. Think of farmers accessing guidance on agriculture practices in their own language. So there are some ways in which AI can more immediately start to influence how we build out DPIs. And this leads me to the risk side of it, because bringing in AI, I mean, at a very fundamental level, there could be hallucinations, or information is not conveyed in a kind of objective sense. So how do you guard against that as you integrate AI into digital public infrastructure? That becomes a challenge for us. My second and last point is about the capacity around this agility moving frontier problem. So as technology advances, as needs change, the capacity building in terms of not just how to manage DPIs or to think about that, that would also need to change. So how we roll out DPI capacity building, how different initiatives globally think about that, I think that would need a constant conversation with those who are kind of trying to anticipate problems or have insights that they can bring from the private sector space to the DPI space. That's, I think, a challenge for the DPI community as a whole, for all of us to kind of gather regularly. And I would close with this, this space, this summit itself has been one of those spaces where we've all gathered together, learned from the fantastic experiences and insights of different players in the DPI ecosystem. So going forward, I think we should continue leveraging this space. So Moritz, I hand it back to you. Thank you.
Thank you, Amandeep, for those insights. And the objective of our panel is to provide diverse perspectives on the reflections that the Tech Envoy just provided us with. And we also want this to be interactive, so at some point after the first or second round of questions, we will open the floor to have a question and answer with the audience as well, maybe as a little incentive for you to listen in and stay with us to the very end. And now I'm going to call our panel on stage. And while I introduce our panelists, please give them a warm round of applause. We're starting with Ambassador Amr Al-Julawi, Assistant Foreign Minister for Multilateral Affairs and International Security in Egypt. Please. Next, we have Bisoye Coker, Director General of the National Identity Management Commission in Nigeria. We also are joined by Mahavir Singhvi, Joint Secretary at the Ministry for External Affairs, India. And we are joined from our colleague in Cambodia as well, Rapid Son, Undersecretary of State for Post and Telecommunications, Cambodia. We're also happy to have with us today Ambassador Nele Leosk, Ambassador at Large for Digital Affairs, Estonia. And last but not least, we are joined by Sabine Menzer, Deputy Chief Executive Officer from Africa Nenda. All right. Since the audience may not be familiar yet with the context that you all speak from, we would like to start this off with a round of introduction, and I would just like to hear from each of you what is the context in which you operate, what organization do you come from, and what are your mandates on digital public infrastructure nationally, but also at the global level. And yeah, let's just start here to my left with Mr. Sun.
Good afternoon. I'm Rapid Sun from the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication of Cambodia. So in Cambodia, we have the National Council of Digital Economy and Society. Under the National Council, there are 3 committees. The Committee for Digital Government, the Committee for Digital Economy and Business, the Committee for Digital Security. And the Ministry of Post and Telecommunication is a ministry that assists the 3 committees in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the building the platform, and also the building the cybersecurity capability to assist this committee. And my role in the ministry, I'm in charge of the international relation and also in the policy formulation. I've been involved in the Cambodia Digital Economy and Policy 2021-2035, and also the Cambodia Digital Government Policy 2022-2035. And now we are working on the Cambodia Data Governance Policy. And when it comes to the DPI, you may know that Cambodia just start embarking the digital transformation. So we would like to take the opportunity to integrate our ecosystem with the global ecosystem so that we can accelerate the digital transformation sustainability and inclusive. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Mr. Singhvi.
Thank you. Good evening. I'm Mahavir Singhvi. I'm Joint Secretary looking after new emerging and strategic technologies in the Ministry of External Affairs. And as one of the technology which I think is very important and making waves all around, has been spoken a lot of times, is artificial intelligence. And we look at it from a tech diplomacy perspective, how the diplomacy can play a role in it. And we also have a division in the ministry which is called Development Partnership Administration. And that particularly looks into the development cooperation aspect of our ministry's work. And DPI is an important tool for diplomacy. I think it has become a very important tool for diplomacy. As you all know now, it is facilitating international cooperation. DPI has become one of the important factors for forging collaboration and cooperation among countries, and therefore it becomes very important for foreign offices to be a part of these conversations. And I think that's how perhaps it becomes very important for us to participate in such conversations around the digital public infrastructure, and to see that how we can be a part of this digital journey around the world and assist as we have developed it in our country. And as you all know, you have been hearing about the India story of the DPI for the last 2 days, and I'm sure that you have got an idea of what we have done in the last 10 years. So I think that's something which we want to share with everyone, our experience we want to share with everyone. We have created some sort of a very small fund to assist those countries who are in need of this and who voluntarily want to, create their own digital public infrastructure. We would be very happy to engage with those countries and look forward to the conversation today.
Good evening. I'd like to first of all thank the government of Egypt and all the partners for bringing us all here. In the context of Nigeria, my name is Abisori Koka Udushate. I oversee the National Identity Management Commission, which is the agency tasked with the issuance of a national identification number for all of the citizens, and also tasked with the responsibility to ensure proper integration and harmonization of all fragmented databases across the government offices, ministries, departments, and agencies, and also tasked with enabling authentication and verification of services across board, and also tasked with the issuance of an EID for all its citizens. That's just a summary of what NIMC is. And at the moment, we've been able to achieve 110,894,260 registrations regarding enrollments. And we also have an average of 10 million verification hits a month. Thank you.
Thank you very much, moderator. First of all, welcome to Egypt and the new capital, since I kind of represent the host in here. Very happy to join today with this select group of panels. My name is Amr El-Gouili. I'm the Assistant Foreign Minister for Multilateral Affairs and International Security. And you may actually wonder why any diplomat would be here. So I'm very happy that we joined with a senior Indian diplomat colleague, and we know the major role that India has played in multilateral affairs and now also on digital issues. And the answer to this question is that these topics are becoming so important that they're actually integrated now on the agenda of multilateral affairs in general and the United Nations in particular. And that's why I'm also happy to see another colleague of mine from the Foreign Ministry, Ambassador of Estonia. And I have actually witnessed the ascendance of this topic from the time that it used to be called Information Society, when the United Nations convened the two phases of the World Summit on Information Society, 2003-2005, until now the evolution even of the terminology that relies more on the digital perspective or the cyber perspective, and of course, as we gather now under the global DPI framework. So in fact, these issues have become so important, so crucial to the conduct of social affairs, economic affairs, political affairs on every day, that they've now occupied their rightful place on top of the global agenda. So thank you for inviting me. I hope we'll still integrate into your technical forward-looking community, and looking forward to a great discussion. Thank you.
Yeah, good evening, everybody, from my side also. So I'm very glad to be here with my colleagues on this very important topic. So I'm Nele Leosk, and I'm Estonia's digital ambassador. And I work in the Foreign Office also. We have a department on digital and cyber diplomacy. And probably many of you may ask, what are these tech diplomats doing? My task is to represent Estonia, and it's Estonia's interest and all of our partners' interests globally. And I'm also responsible for our global partnerships. What does it actually mean? I believe I could maybe summarize it by saying that all tech diplomats work for the virtual space where we all feel good and that we all benefit from. And that is actually, of course, much easier said than done. So how we have approached it in Estonia, very briefly, in our digital and cyber diplomacy strategy that looks at let's say, the global side of the things. We have 5 pillars there. And I am personally responsible for the global technology governance. I think this is all the work that Amandep has led the past 2 years. There are so many other initiatives that look at how we govern technology, how we make sure that we optimize the opportunities for everybody and also manage the risks. But we have also 2 other important pillars. One is very much related to Estonia and Estonia's past, and this is related to e-Estonia, because Estonia is one of the countries that is globally very much recognized for its achievements in this space. And digital public infrastructure is an important part of it. I would say that this is a foundation for our digitalization, even though we do not use the similar term, but maybe some other terms that are also in use. And the third one that I'm going to maybe bring out here, which is perhaps related to DPI, is our partnership with our global partners. So digital development is a big part of Estonia's digital diplomacy, and of course is not related only to technological development, but our experience building an open and I would say a well-to-do and well-functioning society. So it's a rather broad umbrella that I am covering in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sabine Mensah, and I'm Deputy CEO at Africanenda Foundation. So at Africanenda, we started from the belief that every African should have access to financial services. We understand today that there are over 400 million adults on the continent who are outside of the formal banking, formal finance ecosystem. Our ambition is to work with governments, financial regulators, ICT ministries, enablers, development partners to really accelerate an inclusive digital public infrastructure journey for all countries in Africa so that anyone on the continent can at any time instantly send and receive payment as needed and where they are. So we do so by providing technical support, technical expertise to the project owners, but also building from a data perspective. And every year we landscape the different instant payment systems in Africa and where they are on that journey and what lessons are there so we can enable a collective body of work that would accelerate other peoples that are, other governments and countries that are deploying. And of course, we also have policy, advocacy, and communication specialists working with different development partners, curating and participating in platform of exchange so that we can collectively accelerate our pathway to the 2030 Sustainable Development Goals. So it's a pleasure to be here on behalf of the team.
Thank you very much for this interesting first introduction round. So this summit here is a big first. It's the first time that the global DPI community comes together in one location to discuss how we can collaborate more effectively. And since it is because also of the Egyptian government that this is possible and that we have this great venue here, I would like to address my first question to Ambassador Al-Jarawi. Which role do you think will gatherings like this play in the future to discuss what the frontier of digital public infrastructure will look like?
Thank you, moderator, for this important question. And probably the starting point is to see why do we need DPI in the first place. And the reason we need DPI is because we look at it as an enabler for achieving the rightful aspirations of our people for achieving economic development. So the development perspective should not be absent when we discuss DPI and other digital issues, especially that those digital technologies have become so pervasive that they are being used in different activities in society. So gatherings like this, if they have this development orientation, they would help guide countries that are still adopting those new technologies relatively to others and avoiding the mistakes of the past if there are and adopting the best practices. And here I would like to leave maybe one point is that for example, if we look at at mobile technology and how that has actually allowed connectivity for a vast array of developing countries, it has actually leapfrogged many other forms of technologies that may have existed before. And I think that this leapfrogging angle can really be a guiding principle or perspective with DPI as well. So I think forums like this can help to provide a platform for this exchange of experience, exchange of ideas, especially on how to bridge that what used to be called digital divide, and now you can speak of data divide and many other divides for the benefit of developing countries. So I hope that that perspective becomes mainstreamed through activities like the ones that we're participating in.
Thank you very much. Ms. Koka Odosete, during the Tech and Voice intervention, he emphasized how integral technologies like artificial intelligence can be to leveraging the benefits of digital public infrastructure. I'm curious, I'd like to understand a bit better, how does your organization navigate this nexus, and are there any specific plans that you have on the frontier of DPI in the future?
Thank you for that question. I think that first things first is to address AI, okay? I believe that the success of AI is heavily reliant on digital infrastructure. So if you look at low-income countries, you find that a lot of them don't have the basic digital infrastructure needed to be able to drive AI. In the context of Nigeria, we have been able to use AI for our mobile ID, giving power back to the citizens to be able to share their own data themselves and approve their own user consent. So for example, whatever services require their digital ID, they will be able to have control over that and share that. So I believe that also people are at the core of digital public infrastructure. But there are some concerns around AI, which I think we haven't had enough conversations about, especially with issues around deepfakes. But I think that if you have like a stronger cybersecurity measure in place, you've got stronger or resilient government frameworks, and you have solid ethical guidelines, it will be able to address issues around AI. But with that said, I believe that you can use AI to sort of bridge the digital divide, especially in areas around language barriers. I'll give you an example. Nigeria's got about 525 dialects, and we're trying to ensure that we decentralize to the ward level, which is basically the community level. We've got about 8,809 wards at the moment, but then language is a barrier at that level. So we're hoping to be able to use AI to be able to address the concerns around ensuring that language doesn't sort of further widen the marginalized gap that we have at the moment. So that's just a little bit of an insight into what I think of AI, but I think that we can do more research around AI and also leverage what we have at the moment. But it's an ongoing conversation. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singhvi, so India has been the front runner globally on this new DPI notion, and how does the rapid progress in artificial intelligence affect the way the Indian DPI stack will function in the future?
Thank you. Let me first give a brief idea of what India Stack is. I think you have been hearing this for the last 2 days, but I think I'll repeat it once again. This journey started sometime around a decade ago, and today I think it has become one of the most dynamic system of DPI around the world, where we have been able to, give benefits to the millions of people around the country who were in need of that. Even during the COVID time, I think that has become the hallmark of our system. We have been also, kind of ensuring the financial inclusion, inclusion as Tech Envoy also talked about. That has become, again, one of the important aspects of our DPI system. Now, what is DPI in our context? I think I would explain it perhaps in the three aspects. One is the identity layer, which is faceless, and that's providing a unique ID to every citizen of the country. And so far, I think 1.4 billion people have been given this unique ID around the country, which facilitate almost 121 billion monthly authentication. And the authentication is around 80 million every day. And there are also 365 billion US dollars direct benefit transfers so far has happened through the DPI, infrastructure. And another layer, which is, I think, is which constitute the India stack, is also as a payment layer, UPI, Unified Payment Interface, and that has been important in allowing payment to everyone, through any of the banks. It's interoperable, fast and cheap, and it has been facilitating transactions almost 14 billion on a monthly basis. And the value of the total amount of payments is exceeding $245 billion. So that's the scale. It has also facilitated almost 530 million Jan-Dhan accounts around the country. The third layer, which is again constitute the India stack, is the data empowerment, which is through sharing of data through a secure interface, and that's where we have this DPI called India's DigiLocker, which has 330 million users around the world. 7.8 billion documents are stored over there, and during the COVID time, we have been able to administer 2 billion COVID doses. That again has been through a secure sharing of data, and this is the entire India stack. And there, on top of that, there are many applications and services that has been built upon. Now, how AI is going to create another kind of kind of giving more efficiency to this stack which is already there. I think AI would do that, and it's already being done in India. In fact, AI is being integrated in a number of ways into our stack. For example, Bhasini, which is an AI-enabled language translation platform, is being now incorporated into various services being provided through the digital public infrastructure. As Tech Envoy talked about, how you can take it to the last mile connectivity. I think that's where it's important. Through Bhasini, we are enabling people who are not included in a normal way, or those who do not know Hindi or the English, which is the primary language around which the DPI are built. So Bhasini is enabling them to converse in their own vernacular language, and enabling them to avail the services which are could be availed through the digital public infrastructure. Similarly, I think in UPI, AI is enabling kind of fraud detection. Through the transactions, billions of transactions can be analyzed, and through that, various payment platforms like the PhonePe or the Paytm, they are using those systems to detect if there is any fraud happening there. So there is a pattern detection which can also happen through the artificial intelligence. So there are a number of applications which could be thought of through the interface of AI into the digital public infrastructure. But I think perhaps the question which we should be asking, and that is important, is whether we have the the infrastructure in place. That's also, I think, one of the important questions raised by the Tech Envoy in his initial remarks. I think that's something which we need to think about. How do we enable that the countries who are at the level of development, and they are using now at the level of introducing DPI, whether they will have the similar kind of infrastructure for AI which is available, say, in the developed countries or elsewhere. So I think equitable access of AI resources, or the compute power, or whatever you call it, the infrastructure, I think that's essential, and we need to think about that how do we make it available to those people, those countries, those nations where it is required the most. I think we need to think about that perhaps, rather than thinking whether it will, because in any case AI is going to be there and it will be used in public digital infrastructure. It has many benefits. It will enable inclusion, it will enable last mile collectivity, it would empower people. All those are going to happen, but the question is whether we'll be able to do it. That is important, and that's where perhaps we need to think about how do we make equitable access to the AI resources or the AI infrastructure. That is, I think, we need to think about.
Thank you very much. I would like to turn to the next digital pioneer country that we have on the panel, Ambassador Leosk. I would be also keen to hear your perspective on how Estonia is addressing issues like artificial intelligence in advancing the functioning of its digital public infrastructure.
Yeah, thank you. It's a rather complex question, actually. But I will try to keep my answer more simple than the question. So maybe I would divide this into like two sides. On the one hand, I think what has really helped Estonia in deploying new technologies is actually this very solid based digital public infrastructure as we talk about it here. So this base, and I know that I may be repeating myself for those who have already heard me during these 2 days, but Estonia really built a very solid data governance system. And over the past 30 years, or a bit less than 30 years, we have also built a habit of sharing data, and not just sharing data between government organizations, but also sharing data between private companies or private sector and the government, but also other partners, for example, academic institutions. Of course, there are complexities around it, coming from legal requirements and so forth, but we have a very base infrastructure, the same X-road that many of you have heard so many times, that we use also for sharing data that is needed for different AI applications, either in public sector, in private sector also, even though there are, as I said, quite many regulatory barriers currently there. So I would say that in a way, this basics has also helped us to employ new technologies and I would say new trends, but also the ecosystem approach to it. So we haven't really treated any new technologies that comes as a separate issue, but it's integrated in the existing systems and also integrated in the ways we are used to build our digital society. So for example, after our first AI strategy implementation, we carried out a survey among our public administration to find out the barriers for implementing AI in public sector. Of course, as suspected, skills was the #1 barrier, but the second was actually a fear of doing something wrong legally. So we introduced a similar system of a central support for other agencies. Might they need some help or assistance in legal issues in the projects that they were planning. And it's also something that, habits that we have created in the past. We have quite a lot of central support in our actually very decentralized system, especially, for example, in cybersecurity and also other domains. And I would say that this has helped us a lot. But now I come to the second aspect, and I think these new technologies do bring also us a lot of concerns. And perhaps I would refer to something that also Amandep mentioned in his opening remarks, and that is actually the concentration of technological development and also the concentration of technological skills. So Estonia has not been a birthplace of technology or technological innovation as such. Estonia is a smart user of these technologies. And I would say that it's increasingly difficult, even for a country like Estonia, to have these necessary skills among all our partners to make sure that they know how to use these new technologies for their operations, especially among public sector and also private sector, as Estonia does not have big tech companies, but most of our companies, I would say in the global scale, are small and medium size. And this is related also to, now I will takes me to my second point, is actually the infrastructure. I think Amadep was also alluding that we do not have so many options to build the infrastructure that we need, let's say, for the deployment of AI. But I would still say that the main issue even here might not be financial resources, which it also is, but often also the lack of understanding or knowledge what kind of an infrastructure we actually need for our AI needs. And just a few hours ago, World Bank launched its AI working group that we are very honored to co-chair with Nigeria. And actually, infrastructure sovereignty was one of the main concerns that was raised by many countries in this, in this first meeting we had today. And I have to agree that from Estonian side. And I'm coming now to my last point. We talk a lot about let's say, digital infrastructure, but not that much about physical infrastructure that is needed to support digital infrastructure. It's not just about supercomputers and compute power. We have seen over the past years, and especially recently, how vulnerable is the base physical infrastructure. Let's look at submarine cables. We have seen how volcano eruptions in Togo completely switched off the country from all connectivity and electricity. Sometimes it's a nature, sometimes it's a human being that does not want to do good, but uses technology and its power the way it shouldn't. We have seen a lot of satellite interferences, and I believe that the protection of the physical infrastructure is actually a crucial issue, because it's also very, I would say, resource demanding that most of the countries do not possess. So I don't want to end in this very pessimistic note, but as you asked, what is our look on the future? So I think this is a quite realistic picture.
I'm sure we will get back to more optimistic notes. And I think you're making a great point about the smart use of technology, and that there's no necessity to always reinvent the wheel. And Ms. Mensah, when we spoke a few days ago, we talked about open source as well a little bit. And Ambassador Leos also spoke about the guidance, the provision of knowledge. I'm curious, like, how do you support countries in Africa in leveraging technologies smart? How do you support them in using open source in the payment system? And what is the nexus to artificial intelligence there that you provide guidance on?
Well, thank you very much. I think before even going into the quickly saying that in the payment space, how artificial intelligence can make a difference, I see that at 3 levels. First, at a consumer level, just because of the amount of data that's generated and the ability to really have finer analytics leveraging artificial intelligence can help us better understand consumer behavior and hopefully provide clients with services that are more centric to their need and that are also contributing to intuitive experience with those services. And I think the second level is for the regulators themselves, leveraging AI in looking at supervisory or regulatory technology to supervise the ecosystem, to see patterns and trends faster, and leverage that analytics to really ensure that we are safekeeping the ecosystem and that their supervisory role is really facilitated through the use of AI. And last but not least, I think also AI can contribute in safeguarding the systems themselves and how we are leveraging AI in strengthening system and also looking at the fraud that's happening in that ecosystem and how we can contribute to safeguarding those systems through the use of analytics. And of course, I agree with everybody that there are challenges there. I think the responsible use of AI is really what we need to drive. And the DPI Safeguards Initiative are clearly some of the guidelines that can help the ecosystem in taking that into consideration. Now, with regards to evolution of instant payment system and changes that we're seeing, indeed, there is now more recognition on the role of open standard digital public goods that can be used to build the instant payment infrastructure and the impact it has on digital sovereignty and the capacity for a country to really decide the type of infrastructure it wants to build and leverage technology, leverage skills around digital public goods to build that and have the ability to scale that as needed. So I think that is what we're seeing happening in instant payment system, and we collaborate with a few. I just talk about building the payment system itself, but we also have digital public goods that can leverage technology for looking at fraud. Tazama is an example, Mojaloop is an example in the payment ecosystem. At the end of the day, I think as a country, at the country level, it is key that we onboard all the ecosystem in building that DPI strategy, because if we are looking at societal benefit, we need to make sure that all the stakeholders that are impacted or will be using the system to better serve consumers are involved at the beginning of that journey and can contribute to building a strategy that is as inclusive as possible and really help us making sure that digital transformation in our countries leave no one behind.
Yeah, thank you very much for very beautifully laying out what is currently happening, what the challenge is, and what the potential is. I want to shift this to also to the question which guidance should be provided and what the role of governments is. Turning myself to Mr. Sun here, what do you feel should be done by government? What should be their role in guiding the development of those systems and navigating the potential, but also the challenges?
For the government, I think we should promote the DPI. Each ministry should stop develop a silo, a system, a platform. There should be a body to coordinate all the digital initiative and adopting the DPI. Because if you are like previous panelists said that we should not reinvent the wheel. The product, the platform, the solution already exists, and then we just need to adopt, to customize, to meet the local requirement. At the same time, I think the government also need to work with the private sector that build the capacity of the private sector, linkage the local private sector with the international or global company that they can leverage all this technology and also like technology transfer or knowledge transfer to the local, so that we can the digital transformation can be accelerated. Otherwise, it may take a long time, and the technology did not take the advantage of the technology. For example, if some technology might evolve very fast, if you are not catching up with what it is evolved, then you may lag behind of the technology, and maybe your country is still behind to other development in terms of resources. Because in all the developing countries, we face the same challenges in terms of limited human resource, limited budget, and also limited skill. When we want to roll out or adopt something new, it's not that easy. That's why we should adopt the existing mechanism that are already in place, that with the support of the international community, that from all the multi-stakeholder, the development partner, the private sector, and also the UN. Yeah.
Thank you very much. We have a couple of minutes left, and I would like to open up this conversation to the audience as well. I would suggest we collect 3 questions and then hand it back to our panelists. So the first 3 people to raise their hand will get to ask a question.
So, my question is about AI. The way I see AI is a double-edged sword. On one end, it can help us in solving a lot of complex problems by analyzing all the deep and wide set of data and all that. But then the carbon footprint of AI itself is not funny. It's too, environment unfriendly, AI as a technology. How do we look at, what is the perspective of people to leveraging AI in a sustainable manner? On one end, we are talking that DPIs need to be sustainable. The DPI infrastructure needs to be sustainable. On the other hand, we are very gung-ho about leveraging AI left, right, center. Are we not in a very interesting paradox?
All right, then I'm just handing, who would like to, is there anyone else who would like to ask a question? Otherwise,
We could take a couple of questions.
yes. But
hi, my question is to the ambassador from Estonia. She you've really laid out many issues which could come in the future from the perspective of regulation, concentration of market power, etc. I am formally from the Competition Commission of India. We were looking at big tech and markets, and DPIs were thought and are thought to be providing contestability to these large technology companies. How do you see that in the future it may be a fear that riding on the digital public infrastructure, we have these private actors who have deep pockets, could perhaps replicate the kind of ecosystems they have developed in the private proprietary silos of provision of services? And what should be the governments and regulators be wary of? And is it a right time to start thinking of concentration in the application layer or in the private actors riding on the public infrastructure?
So I think I have a very small question. So the AI should be open or closed? Because we hear a lot of open AI. Any remarks on that? Thank you.
All right, I would like to give each panelist the possibility to answer aspects of each of the questions they want to answer to, but please keep it short so we can all wrap this up in time and let you enjoy your evening. So let me just quickly summarize the questions that we had. Question number one was on the carbon footprint of artificial intelligence and how we build sustainable DPI. The second question was on the risk of private sector stakeholders building parallel systems and whether it's time for governments to act now. And the third question is whether we should be building open AI systems, open source systems, or rely on proprietary systems. And yeah, let's start here maybe to my left, and we go all the way through, and let's keep it at 30 seconds approximately.
For me, I think the development of the AI should be open, and that allow the developing country to adopt and to bridge the AI gap between the developed and developing country. But at the same time, we also need to look into the local context, because the AI, some of the data that might be trained by using the data from any other country. But with one country, there may be a different context. When it comes to culture, traditional, or history or political. So there should be allowed the country to have the AI, to adopt the AI, but at the same time also leverage the existing data. Yeah. Thank you.
On the sustainability, I think the question perhaps is very apt, and we need to think about it. The only solution can be to build green data center, use more renewable energy, and to see that the carbon emissions which are generated perhaps are limited to some extent. So I think that's something which we all need to think about as we scale up DPI with the help of AI. I think it would be even grow in its strength. So I think it's important that we look into this aspect. And how do we address it? I think every country has to think about it, that how do we make green data centers, and perhaps, and renewable energy could be a solution to that. I think that's something which we need to look at. As far as the other question is concerned, I think AI perhaps, whether it needs to be open sourced or not, it depends on where the usage is. I think that's something we need to look at. I think we cannot just say that simply that, you have to balance innovation with, you have to also balance the rights of those who are, investing into it, putting money, inventing it. They have some expectations out of it. So how do we balance all those things? I think perhaps that needs to be considered, to my mind, and that's my personal view. I'm not talking as GUI's representative here. But that's, I think we need to strike a balance somewhere. Where do we go? But as far as DPI is concerned, I think, of course, open source AI would be helpful in scaling it up further. Thank you. And making it accessible to everyone. And when we talk about inclusion, I think it becomes even more important in that context.
I think the conversations around DPI and AI, especially with government, is that government needs to drive the adoption of AI and DPI across board. And also, before that can be done, some governments need to make sure that they have the digital infrastructure, you know, in line with what she said, which is making sure that you have internet connectivity, which means building the actual dots for you to be able to lay fiber there. And also in areas where you don't have any electricity, then you can't have technology. So we need to talk about, this is where renewable sustainable energy comes into play, which is very important. So I also think that government has to strengthen all the legal frameworks around DPI and emerging trends like AI. And AI is developing so very rapidly. So you obviously have all the concerns around ethical guidelines and certain, you know, the data protection or digital rights citizens' concerns. I also feel like, for example, in Nigeria, what the government has done is to scale up, basically just scale up its capacity building on AI, which is very, very important. So you need to be able to equip people with the digital skills that they would need for this. Also around DPI, what we have done is enhanced our digital services to ensure that we leverage on DPI to sort of streamline the government functions across board to make sure that we're able to promote financial inclusion and also provide access to essential government services around healthcare, education, and agriculture, etc. So we've done quite a lot with the NIN-SIM linkage in the telecommunications sector, and we've also done the financial sector linkage with the BVN and the NIN, and we've done the tax identification number linkage with the NIN of recent, and we've also been able to link the ECRVS from the National Population Commission with the National Identity Database to ensure that we can do birth registration from when a child is born, as opposed to when the child turns 16. So there are quite a lot of use cases that we have. But just to say that really government also needs to partner with the private sector, especially in the area of funding and driving the adoption of DPI and AI across board.
Let me try some telegraphic answers to the questions. The one on sustainability, I guess that comes back to an idea that I tried to share before, which is on leapfrogging. So everything that is green is basically leapfrogging whatever the earlier technologies were. So I couldn't agree more on how we could just adopt, yes, the technology that is more suited for a sustainable future. That's telegraphic. The second one on open source, I would basically say just like, and this is maybe where diplomats can start to bring in their experience from other forms of negotiations and domains and fields. When we speak about energy, we speak about an energy mix, don't we? Some renewable, some traditional, some wood. And the same thing is probably for the DPI platforms, that we can also speak of a mix, of an energy mix, of a DPI mix, whereby some are open source and some are other, like my dear colleague from India has mentioned, choosing what's best for them. But I couldn't leave, you know, this session without re-emphasizing, because Moritz, you had asked the question about what are these platforms also good for. They're good for, I would think of them as a clearinghouse, whereby you can match the needs with the supply, or the demand with the supply, the needs with the providers. And here, the capacity building that my dear sister from Nigeria has mentioned is incredibly important as a major component of transforming to a DPI society, if we may call it so. Especially that what started as a digital divide, when we were first discussing this in 2003, 2005, it is not anymore a hard divide, meaning a connectivity divide. It's also an educational divide. It's also, of course, an infrastructure divide. It's also a policy-making divide, if we may call it so. So the array, the spectrum of intervention that is needed because of how DPI is pervasive is compound. The divide has really become compound. And that's where the DPI summits and other forums can help to bring in.
Thank you. I'm going to keep it short. I think it was raised a bit the issue of the balance between the risks and opportunities and where we, in a way, stand here. And from Estonia, we can definitely say that we opt for optimism. So despite all the risks that we are having, we do not have any other chance than to actually embrace these technologies. And I think this is also the question how we see regulations. Do we see the role of regulations simply to eliminate risks, not to allow something, or we actually have these regulations to support innovation, but innovation where we feel good. And there was a second question directed to me. Unfortunately, I have to say that digital sovereignty is a very complex issue. It's a more complex issue than DPI can solve. There are that many companies that currently produce superpowers. But of course, there are ways to mitigate these risks, to distribute, let's say, the compute power. But as to DPI, for us, it has really allowed, and I was bringing this example of our collaboration, for example, with our neighbors, our regional collaboration, where we really do things together and where we share our resources, also our knowledge. And I think this is definitely an asset of the DPI for all the countries, especially smaller.
I sincerely believe that technology has the potential to help us build a fairer and sustainable future for all of us. I think it's our ability to realize the potential of technology into the inclusive outcome we seek that makes the difference. So for me, yes, I think it's important that this ecosystem be open. It is important that it incentivize fair competition and that it builds on public and private partnership to deliver for individuals, for businesses, and for government. Because at the end of the day, our future is decidedly digital. And how do we make sure that we are onboarding all of us, individual businesses, into that future, and that we deliver for that societal, benefit that we seek. So yes, I mean, with all technology and AI, there are how you leverage it, and there are some risks, and I really appreciate forums like this and the principles of the DPI that really look into the different risks and make some recommendation on how stakeholders, wherever they are in that value chain, can leverage this principle and deliver on more inclusive outcome. And I want to say that we at Africa NENDA are a philanthropic organization available to all countries in Africa to support the digital public infrastructure journey and make sure that we are accelerating the pathway to inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you all. I have a big red screen looking at me saying that our time is up. So we've heard a lot of great examples on how innovation can be used to better realize the potential of DPI. We've also heard about some of the challenges that we have around resource constraints, for example. But we've also heard about the role that platforms like this here can play. So let's use those platforms to address those long-term challenges now and not only think about the short term. I want to use the opportunity as well once more to thank the government of Egypt for hosting us, for enabling us to come together here. And also a big thanks goes out to Co-Develop, who initiated this Global DPI Summit. So a big round of applause to our panelists and hope to see you again soon.